All right, welcome everyone to today's joint webinar organized by Registrar Corp in partnership with the U.S. Commercial Service of the U.S. Consulate in Sydney and the Australian Federal Government Trade Promotion and Investment Agency, better known as Austrade. This webinar has been specially catered to food and beverage exporters across Oceania looking to enter and succeed in the U.S. market. My name is Leonard Calejo, and I'm the Global Senior President of Marketing for Registrar Corp, the global leader in US FDA compliance services with over 30,000 customers worldwide and local offices in 19 different countries. We're excited that you guys have all joined us today, and we're excited to have assembled a good group of speakers who will provide you with practical guidance for entering as well as expanding your exports into the USA, one of the world's largest and most dynamic food and beverage markets. Let me share with you today's agenda that is chock full of valuable information. So first, we'll have some opening remarks from Steve Knode from the U.S. Consulate in Sydney. And then we'll have Craig Young join us, and he'll give us an overview of Austrade Export Services. And then we'll have Anna Benevente from Registrar Corp give you some really good information around U.S. FDA regulations that govern exports of food and beverage products to the USA. And then Vijey Ananda from Registrar Corp will come on and share with you some valuable information as it relates to assistance that we can offer in identifying U.S. buyers, buyers that are buying your products today. And then we will have Duncan Archibald come on and talk about the SelectUSA program, and we'll have an open Q&A after all the presentations are done. We will take questions and answers. If you have any questions throughout the presentations, I encourage you in the GoToWebinar interface here on the top right, you'll see there's a chat icon with a question mark in it. Feel free to click that and then type in your question. And throughout the webinar, we will identify those questions, and I will facilitate a Q&A, a live Q&A with our panelists, our presenters today, and hopefully get to all of your questions. If we don't get to all of your questions, we will follow up with you personally after the webinar to make sure that we address any concerns or any questions that we weren't able to answer due to time constraints. Also, the slides will not be available after this webinar. However, we will be sending out a recording that you'll be able to view the recording at your own leisure. We'll send that out in the next day or so via email. We'll also post it on our YouTube channel so that you can watch it via YouTube as well. So let's get started. We got a busy agenda. First up, we have, let me advance my slide. First up, we have Steve Knode from the U.S. Consulate in Sydney. Steve is the Senior Commercial Officer for Australia, New Zealand, and the Pacific Island countries. Steve has previously served as Deputy Senior Commercial Officer at the U.S. Embassy in Tokyo, Japan, Senior Commercial Officer for U.S. Commercial Service in Pakistan, based in Karachi, and the head of USCS in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Part of the U.S. Department of Commerce, USCS is the principal trade and investment promotion agency of the U.S. government. Steve, over to you.
Leonard, thank you so much. It's really an honor and a privilege for me to kick off this webinar together with you, Leonard, and your team at Registrar, fantastic company. You've already mentioned where I've served. I've been around a bit, so it's possible I've bumped into you over the years. As Leonard mentioned, right now, my role is to oversee U.S. Commercial Service, U.S. Department of Commerce activities in this region. I'm based in Sydney, but cover Australia, New Zealand, and the Pacific Islands. And we actually do have people around the region. We've got a mighty team of about 12, if you count all heads. A lot of us here in Sydney, but also a presence in Canberra, Wellington, Auckland, and Suva as well. So we've got you covered. We also have a network of offices in the United States too, across about 100 cities. So we do have a substantial network, and we have basically a twofold mandate. One is to help promote U.S. exports internationally, find partners for American companies, and indeed help great companies like Registrar, which is obviously the company we're working with today, and the great work that they do in trying to help international companies with FDA, navigating the U.S. market with FDA registrations and the like. So we're here to help obviously American companies in international markets, but the other part, and you're going to hear more from my colleague Duncan Archibald a little bit later in this presentation, is we also provide resources and support for international companies. A lot of those that are on the line today, probably looking at the United States not just as a market to sell into, but ultimately we hope as a place to invest. And through a program we call SelectUSA, we do exactly that, trying to help facilitate relationships, have you meet the right states and provide market research. So Duncan's going to talk a lot more about that a little bit later in the program. So again, see us as a resource. We really want to help those of you who are on this call today. But most importantly, for the topic of today, I got to say, I've lived here in Sydney now for 2 years. As Leonard mentioned, as part of being a commercial diplomat, I move around a lot. Absolutely love being based here in Australia, here in Sydney. But one of the reasons I love it so much is, oh my gosh, the options that I have, food, beverage, so innovative, so healthy, delicious, fantastic. So many of the brands, and I'm not going to name any because I don't want to get into any trouble, but I imagine a lot of the companies that are on this webinar today, I've probably sampled what you've got, and it's fantastic. And so would love to see you be successful in the United States, but it's not easy, right? You need some help. We're here to help you, and obviously Austrade will come next to talk about how they can help you. But Registrar is a great company to do exactly that, right? It's not easy, and you need some support. So Registrar is there to do that. So really happy that I'm able to, and our team is able to work with Registrar and the team there to help you achieve the success that you're looking for in the United States, and hopefully, ultimately, make plans to build operations there as well. So that's it from me. Thanks very much. Again, my team is here to support, and over back to you, Leonard, to keep this program moving.
Great. Thank you so much, Steve. Appreciate the partnership on this, and thanks for taking time out of your busy day to join us on this webinar. All right, so next up we have Craig Young. Craig is also based in Sydney and is the Senior Global Engagement Manager, Agribusiness, Food and Consumer Products Trade Team at Austrade. Craig and his team assist Australian exporters in the agri, food, beverage, and consumer products sectors to expand their exports to priority markets. Craig is also the local Australian connection to Austrade's North American team. Without further ado, take it over, Craig.
Thanks, Leonard, and thanks for the opportunity to present today. As you say, I'm part of the Ag, Food and Consumer Products team here at Austrade. So today I'm just going to give a bit of an update on Austrade and what we do, but also touch on the US. So if I can go to the next slide, please. So Austrade is the Australian Federal Government's trade promotion agency. So that means that we work with exporters and with industry bodies, helping people expand their exports. The key strength of Austrade is our international network. We have about 50 offices around the world. And in those offices, I say they're staffed with passionate locals, so people from that country who know the market well, have a great network of customers, but also often know government officials, customs officials that help As far as North America is concerned, we've got 5 people in ag, food and consumer products specifically geographically dispersed across the US, and I'd say 1 in Toronto as well, that can help. Therefore, if you're regionally looking, if you're just looking for the Southwest, for example, or the Midwest, we've got someone who can really focus in that area. The other thing we do is we work very closely with the state and territory governments here in Australia, who have a network of trade start advisors, and a lot of those people are regionally based, and they work really well with emerging exporters, helping them on their export journey. And they often have different programs, and their programs often complement our programs. Next slide, please, Leonard. Now, the US is a key market for agri-food for Australia. So the last financial year, up to the end of June, Australia exported $9 billion worth of ag and food products, beverages to the US. That's our second largest agri-food export market. And that's 13% of our agri-food exports, which is up from 11% the year before. So it's a growing export market for Australia, and really important in a number of areas. And I'll just touch on that, actually go back a step, because the US actually represents 5% of all of our goods exports, but you can see it's 13% of our agri-food exports. So it over-indexes a very important export market for our food and beverage products. So it's our top export market for red meat. It's our number 3 market for wine. Australia plays a really important role in ingredients in food manufacturing and beverage manufacturing in the US as well. We supply a lot of really specialised ingredients. And certainly packaged food over the last couple of years has been increasing interest from the retailers in the US, and particularly now in private label, we're seeing quite a lot of interest from the retailers in the US in Australian produced food for their private label brands. But it is a very strong regulatory compliance is important in the US, and I guess that's the point of today's webinar. Next slide, please. So, as I mentioned, I'm part of the Ag, Food and Consumer Products team, but here in Australia, and the way Austrade is structured, we have 5 key sectors that we work in, and we have a team of advisors that work in each of those areas. The other thing that's really important, and increasingly you're seeing more and more content coming into, is what we call the Go Global Toolkit. It's a website on the export.business.gov.au address, and constant updates in there of information for any market to help you on your journey. Whether you're a new exporter or an experienced exporter, you'll find insights and content on here that will help. So, Leonard, if you can just go to the next slide, please, we'll have a quick look. So that's a quick walk through what the Go Global Toolkit can do. But on the home page, you'll see on the right-hand side there now, under popular information, is a whole channel, if you like, regarding the US. It's called Navigating US Tariffs, obviously a hot topic, but it has more than just tariff information on there. So if we can go to the next slide, please. In there, you will find a series of webinars that we've been doing. Some of those are very practical information, so understanding country of origin, understanding HS codes, but also some really important discussions around the tariffs, particularly the discussions over the last few months. This is going to continue to be updated, and there's an FAQ section in there that's constantly being updated as more information comes through about what's coming from the US. And there's a link there to other resources and that will help you as well. So if you are thinking about the US or any market from an export point of view, I encourage you to have a look at the Go Global Toolkit. Next slide, please. So to finish, what I suggest is please contact Austrade here in Australia to see how we can help, or through your state or territory government, the Trade Start Network, help you on your export journey. But yes, I really do encourage you to have a look at the Go Global Toolkit. I think there's really good practical information in there for everybody. And other than that, I wish you a lot of good information on the rest of the webinar today. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Craig. Appreciate you joining us today. Very valuable information. And I know you're a busy person, so hopefully you can stick around for our Q&A later on in this webinar. All right, so next up we have Anna Benevente, who will provide her expert insights on navigating US FDA regulations. Anna is Registrar Corp's Director of Product Labeling and Ingredient Review. Anna has been with Registrar Corp since 2009 and has over 15 years of experience in analytical research, focusing on regulatory affairs. Since joining Registrar Corp, her label review team has reviewed over 13,000 products for FDA compliance. Her areas of expertise include import alerts and detention assistance, product formulation requirements, and labeling for cosmetics, OTC drugs, food, supplements, and medical devices. So without further ado, let me turn it over to Anna.
Thanks, Leonard, and thanks everybody for joining us today. I'm really excited to be presenting to you all. We'll be discussing some key requirements that are necessary and ensuring that you can successfully export to the US and comply with the necessary regulations. Okay, next slide. So first, we're going to discuss the oversight of food in general and discuss the three primary agencies that may have jurisdiction over your products. I will say your number one and number three exports, I'm a big fan of red meat and wine, so I'm going to have a little bit of information covering that as well. And then we'll move into the general FDA requirements that you'll need to meet before shipping, followed by labeling and ingredient requirements that your products also have to meet to prevent detention and refusal in port. Okay, next slide. Okay. So first, the most extremely important question to ask is who actually has jurisdiction over your products? And this, of course, will dictate which regulations must be followed in order to maintain compliance. Okay, next. Okay. So, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration has jurisdiction over most of the foods in the U.S. market. And like any regulatory agency, there are some basic requirements that must be met by every company that's selling food in the US. Now, also under their authority, they issue really strict regulations regarding what ingredients can be used in food products. They also have complicated regulations that govern the labeling of food products. And these regulations will specify what must appear on a label, as well as rules regarding claims that are being made about the products. Now, many companies do make the critical mistake of thinking that the FDA regulations only apply to domestic U.S. producers, but this isn't the case. So imported foods must also comply with these regulations upon entry. FDA inspects food in port and will not release products that have improper ingredients or labeling, even if the importer intends to change the label after it arrives. So important to understand that products must be compliant when they arrive at the port of entry. Now, there are also two other agencies that we must consider as well that I'll touch upon in the next few slides. So certain food products like red meat and wine will fall under a different jurisdiction or be subject to additional requirements under a different agency than FDA that you need to be aware of. Okay, now the first agency that I want to address is the U.S. Department of Agriculture, or USDA. Now, I know that meat can be a big commodity here, and so I wanted to highlight that USDA regulates meat and poultry products that contain more than 3% raw or 2% meat. Now, also those with 30% or more fat, tallow, extract, skins, and such, those will also fall under USDA. Now, those below these levels will then, by default, fall under FDA jurisdiction. Now, it can get a little confusing because, for example, USDA also regulates egg products like liquid eggs, but not shell eggs. And there are also some exceptions like freeze-dried products and other categories that will fall under FDA along with shell eggs. It's also important to understand that USDA will only allow meat, poultry, and egg products under their jurisdiction from countries where they have determined substantial equivalence with our safety systems. The USDA Food Safety and Inspection Service makes the determination with the non-US country's central competent food safety authority. And so then that authority will then designate the individual companies that are on a list that it maintains as being certified to export to the US. Okay. The lists of what countries and establishments that can send USDA regulated products to the US is found on the USDA website. So for example, you can see here the products that are permitted for export to the US from Australia and New Zealand. Now, another important point is that products falling under FDA jurisdiction that have animal sourced ingredients may have USDA requirements as well. Now, the importer may need to obtain what is called a VS permit, or veterinary services permit, in order to import the product. So then that submission includes information about the nature of and the manufacturing processes associated with the product that you as the manufacturer might need to provide. Now, the ingredient itself may need to be sourced from an approved establishment, but we found that sometimes this can vary. And so even if there's no VS permit requirement, there are also sometimes documents that need to accompany the shipment, such as sanitary or animal health certificates. So the prudent thing to do for these products is to have your importer communicate with the USDA Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service to determine what will be necessary. Okay, Leonard, next slide. Now, the USDA also has restrictions in place when you're exporting fresh fruits and vegetables to the US. And due to their efforts to safeguard American agriculture from foreign disease and pests, they may require specific permits and treatments such as fumigation. They may also limit which countries can send which commodities to the US and which ports can receive certain commodities. So if you're sending fresh fruits or vegetables, you should research the USDA status prior to shipping. So the website that is shown here is for the Agricultural Commodity Import Requirements page on USDA.gov, and it has all of this information available to you. Okay, next. Now, of course, this area is well known for its wines, so I wanted to make a quick mention of how alcoholic beverages are regulated in the US. The Alcohol and Tobacco Tax and Trade Bureau, or TTB, has jurisdiction over most of them. Now, it's a bit convoluted, but in essence, it's dependent on whether the Federal Alcohol Administration Act grants authority for a specific beverage to TTB. And if it does not, then that beverage will fall under FDA jurisdiction by default, primarily when you're talking about the labeling. So for example, all malt beverages, regardless of their alcohol content, fall under TTB. Same with distilled spirits, even if they're pre-mixed in a can with other ingredients, like a canned mojito. Wines are tricky. They're defined in the Act as those between 7 and 21% alcohol by volume, and those fall under TTB. So those that will have less than 7% alcohol fall to FDA. Also, beer is defined in this Act as having malted barley and hops. So beers that are made from alternate ingredients will fall under FDA. Now, the TTB imposes additional restrictions on the distribution of these beverages, even sometimes the FDA regulated ones. And there is a special permit for the US importer. Also, the labeling requirements are quite different and frankly not as complicated for TTB regulated beverages, but you also then have to get your label approved by TTB prior to distribution. And so this is usually submitted and accomplished by the importer. Okay, next. Okay, so then in the next section of the webinar, we're going to discuss the baseline requirements that you need to meet before you begin exporting for FDA. Okay, next. And the most basic requirement that all companies that manufacture, process, pack, or store food must meet is the food facility registration, and this registration must be renewed every other year. Companies must understand that by registering, you are giving FDA permission to inspect your facility. And the registration will require that you provide a unique facility identifier, or UFI. And the only currently recognized UFI is the Dun & Bradstreet number, fittingly called the DUNS number. Now, not all facilities have to register, and there are some specific exemptions for farms and fishing vessels and some other types of facilities. Now, if you are a non-US facility, then you must designate a US agent when you register with FDA. They must be physically located within the United States and are responsible for receiving communication on the company's behalf from FDA. It's important to designate a professional and reliable person or company as your US agent, as these communications include notices of inspection and other messages from the FDA that you want answered promptly. Now, Registrar Corp is proud to serve as a US agent for over 19,000 companies worldwide. Okay, next. Now, once registered, a company may start shipping their goods almost immediately. There's no extra licensure involved, but you do need to be aware of the prior notice filing requirement. Now, this is a notification of an individual shipment before it arrives in a US port. Now, the time frame before arrival varies depending on the mode of transport. So it differs depending on whether it's coming by land, air, or sea as to when, what your deadline is for filing the prior notice. Also important to understand that this is different than the customs entry that must be filed with US Customs and Border Protection. Also, even if you are just sending samples to a potential buyer, it must be filed, and detentions can result if it's not. So this prior notice filing will include information about the shipment and the facility. It can be filed by an exporter, an importer, or a third party. So for example, Registrar Corp has a team dedicated to filing prior notices for our clients in a timely and efficient manner. Okay, next. Now, because shelf-stable canned or acidified foods have unique potential safety risks associated with them, FDA imposes additional requirements on these products. Now, an acidified food, by its definition, is one with a final pH of 4.6 or less and water activity greater than 0.85. A low-acid canned food is one with a final pH greater than 4.6 and a water activity greater than 0.85. So these foods are treated to prevent microbiological contamination. Now, they are subject to a food canning establishment registration called FCE and a product submission identifier called SID. The company, usually the manufacturer, must demonstrate that the proper process is being followed to ensure that the food remains safe. So common examples will include products like green olives in brine, figs in syrup, canned roasted peppers, and some shelf-stable juices. Now, not all shelf-stable foods, though, require the FCE and SID. So, for example, olive oil is not subject to these requirements, but olive oil with a rosemary sprig in the container is. So if you're unsure whether or not your goods require FCE and SID, we have free tools that can help. Our FCE wizard will help you identify if your products are subject to these regulations, and will provide a PDF report that details the possible requirements. Now, if you're unsure if your company's product has an SID on file, which is part of that customs entry information, and we see a lot of detentions related to this issue, you're going to want to access our SID verifier and avoid the time-consuming detentions and entry errors in port. Go ahead and verify that your SID is on file with FDA. Okay, next. Now, FDA food regulations underwent a dramatic change in 2011 with the passage of the Food Safety Modernization Act. Part of the new requirements was the mandate of that manufacturers have a food safety plan that incorporates the tenets of hazard analysis and risk-based preventive control, also called HARP-C. Now, the plan has to be written by a preventive controls qualified individual, or PCQI. And this is someone with the education and knowledge to determine what hazards exist for your food and how to control them. The plan must include the elements shown in our graphic here. So for example, you must have a supply chain program and monitoring procedures as part of your HARP-C food safety plan. Now, it's a little different for some product categories. Juice and seafood facilities still must follow the hazard analysis and critical control point, or HACCP system, that's been in place for many, many years. Now, all of this is connected to a new requirement, the Foreign Supplier Verification Program, that requires U.S. importers to monitor their suppliers and maintain documentation to show that these exporters are in compliance. So you're going to need to have your food safety plan ready for your importers before you start exporting. They're going to be requesting this information as part of the Foreign Supplier Verification Program. Okay, next. Yep, in the next section of our webinar, we'll discuss the product-specific requirements for labeling and formulation. And so you can eliminate a lot of the risk before shipping by ensuring that your product's ingredients are permitted and all of the labeling elements are present. Now, there are certain statements that almost always must appear on food labeling. So typically, you must include a statement of identity, which usually means the common or usual name of the product or the one specified by law. The net quantity must also appear, usually by weight or volume, in both imperial and metric units. Now, FDA has unique nutrition labeling requirements involving a nutrition facts panel, and that it can vary in format depending on the size of the container and the nutritional composition of the product. The ingredients must also be declared, usually descending order by weight, by the common name, except in the case of natural and artificial flavor, spices, and a few other exemptions. FDA has a mandatory allergen declaration for 9 allergens that must be included, and those are milk, eggs, finfish, crustacean shellfish, tree nuts, peanuts, wheat, soybeans, and sesame. Also note these are the only ones that should be declared on the label. FDA has issued warning letters when people have declared rye or mustard or other allergens that aren't on FDA's list. Now, FDA labeling regulations also mandate the declaration of the corporate name and address of the manufacturer, packer, or distributor. Any of the 3 may be used. It's up to you, entirely at your discretion. Then the country of origin is a U.S. Customs and Border Protection requirement and should appear on all labels, both retail and wholesale. And finally, USDA has a requirement that a food disclose on its label if it contains a bioengineered or GMO ingredient from a master list that's kept by the agency, which notably includes both corn and soy, or if the company has direct knowledge that any of its other ingredients are in fact bioengineered. Okay. Next. Now, nutrition labeling is very complicated, so we pulled together some examples from other countries to illustrate how different the FDA chart is. Here you can see the US FDA chart compared to charts from New Zealand, Australia, and Singapore. So they're very different, so you want to be sure to have yours properly declared before shipping. Incorrect nutrition facts charts are an extremely common cause for product detention in ports. Now, while labeling may be the first thing that an inspector sees, the ingredients in your product may come under scrutiny as well. So be sure that they are acceptable for the U.S. market. FDA has 3 classifications for ingredients: food additives, substances that are generally recognized as safe, also called GRAS, and color additives. Now, by law, all substances added to food must be approved by FDA through the food additive petition process, unless they are generally recognized as safe. FDA has also established a list of prior sanctioned ingredients that are permitted in food. GRAS substances are recognized as safe for their intended use by qualified experts, either through scientific procedures or through a history of use in food. And lastly, color additives, even those from natural sources like caramel and carmine, must all be approved by FDA. They are never considered GRAS. Next. Now, in order to figure out if your ingredients fall into one of these categories, you're going to need to research some specific resources. The U.S. Code of Federal Regulations includes all of the food additives and color additives that have been approved by FDA. It also includes regulations where FDA has affirmed certain substances are GRAS, or generally recognized as safe. So it's important to pay close attention to the regulations, as they will tell you exactly what products and intended uses are covered. So for example, some are permitted just generally in food, but others may be limited to only particular types of food or for certain specific uses. GRAS status, though, is not limited just to these FDA GRAS affirmations. GRAS status is based upon the opinion of the scientific community as a whole. So companies are permitted to self-affirm an ingredient as GRAS using data that is either public or privately held. Now, if a company chooses to self-affirm that an ingredient is GRAS, then they should make sure that they have the data available in the event that FDA requests proof of that ingredient's status. Now, FDA does have a process by which a company may submit what is called a GRAS notice. And this is to inform FDA that the company has determined that an ingredient is GRAS. FDA will then respond whether they have any questions or concerns regarding the company's data and conclusion that the substance is safe. Okay. And with that, I'll conclude my portion of the presentation and hand it back to you, Leonard. And just my deepest thanks to the U.S. Commercial Service for the invitation to present today. And we at Registrar Corp are happy to help you in any way possible to ensure your trouble-free exportation to the U.S.
Thank you, Anna. Always learn something new whenever you present. That was a presentation that was packed with a lot of valuable information. Again, I encourage all of you that are listening today on this webinar to use the chat with the question mark. If you click that, you can submit your questions and we will have a live Q&A after our last presentation. Actually, up next, we have Vijey Ananda, who will provide some insights on how you can identify the top buyers of your specific products through Registrar Corp's new Buyer Finder service. Vijey is our Senior Regulatory Advisor here at Registrar Corp for ASEAN and Oceania. He has a background in banking and financial services, as well as broad industry experience, including regulatory compliance. Vijey also has an MBA from London Business School. Vijey, let me turn it over to you. Let me advance the slides and get you going.
Thanks very much, Leonard. Leonard, just reminding you to unmute because of the video at the end, yeah?
Yep.
Thanks, everyone. I'm here to take a little bit of time to present a brand new Registrar Corp offering, which is outside of compliance. As the name suggests, this offering will help you identify the top buyers of your specific products in the United States. So we've all been to trade shows and we've all tried to meet with potential buyers, so we all know how difficult it is. So this product has come after calls from a number of our customers to provide it. So it's a customized product. It provides, as it says, a specific report on US buyers. It's based on FDA data with 125,000 buyers and 100 million shipments over the past 24 months. And through this service, you can get direct contact and shipment details of importers. And it's available based on the particular searches that you specify. So the search can be as broad or as narrow as you choose. And it's going to save you a lot of time and money and empower your sales team to get on with their business development efforts. Next slide, please, Leonard. So I'm sorry if this is a bit small, but this gives you an idea of the kind of report that we will generate. So on the right-hand side, you will see that there will be a listing of the top buyers of your specific product category in descending order, depending on the number of shipments. So you'll have shipment information, you will have specific contact information for each of your buyers, enabling you to contact them directly. I think depending on the product category that you choose, you could have up to 100 buyers listed here. So a very powerful report indeed. And finally, to bring it all together, I'd just like to play a short video for you. Next slide, please, Leonard.
Expand confidently in the USA with Buyer Finder. The US is the world's largest market for food and beverage imports, and the most competitive. You want to enter or expand by finding new buyers, but are wasting time and money blindly searching and calling. You need the latest intelligence on which US companies are importing your type of products, how much they are buying, and how recently they bought. Introducing Buyer Finder, a precision tool to help you easily find and connect with US importers of your specific products. The Buyer Finder report shows the US importers of your product type, purchases over the past 24 months, last purchase date, and contact information. Collected from several sources, the data includes all imports, land, sea, and air. With Buyer Finder, you have the power of knowing each buyer's purchase history and target the ones with the best fit. For example, if you are an olive oil producer, Buyer Finder shows you which US companies import olive oil, how much they have imported, and their last purchase. You can even tailor your search to be wide like olive oil or narrow like extra virgin olive oil. No other sales tool provides you this level of intelligence. You don't just get names, you get quantity and recency of their purchasing. Buyer Finder helps you target smarter and win faster in the US market. Expand confidently in the USA with Buyer Finder. Visit registrarcorp.com and get your sample report today.
Excellent. Thank you, Vijey, for talking about Buyer Finder.
Expand
Oops, let me go to the next
confidently in the USA.
There we go. Sorry about that, everybody. All right. So our last speaker is Duncan Archibald, who will provide some information on the SelectUSA program. Duncan has over 15 years experience working with the U.S. government's preeminent trade and marketing agency. Duncan is the New South Wales and Queensland Business Development Manager for the SelectUSA program. SelectUSA is the U.S. federal government's premier foreign direct investment, or FDI, promotion agency. Its services include assisting Australian companies interested in expanding into the U.S. market by providing market intelligence, business contacts, and connections to state-based economic development offices throughout the North American market. Duncan, if you can come off of, turn on your camera, we'll turn it over to you. Perfect.
Many thanks, Leonard, and good morning or good afternoon, everyone. As Leonard said before, I work for the US Department of Commerce under Steve Knode and the team in Sydney. We're based at the US Consulate here in Sydney. Work for the Department of Commerce, so I'm an Aussie working for the US government in this case. Part of Commerce has an agency called SelectUSA, and the whole reason for its being is to promote foreign direct investment into the US. We have a bunch of services that we'll touch on quickly, but probably crudely, we certainly are interested in helping Australian exporters enter the US market, and the key metrics for us that are most important are that you want to incorporate in the US and hire US citizens. So from that perspective, there is a US federal government agency that will assist you in your endeavours entering into the US market. If we can go to the first slide, Leonard, please, and kick off. So really, in a nutshell, there are four main services that the SelectUSA program provides Australian exporters. The first is market research. So if you're sure that there's a market in the US, but you're not quite sure where you want to go and set up in the US, we can provide, we can generate market research essentially that would pass down 50 states and territories to say, based on your requirements, whether it be proximity to end users, proximity to partner clients, proximity to raw materials, jurisdictions with the lowest tax rates, proximity to talent, specific types of talent that you might be looking for, based on whatever requirements you have that would then give you the confidence to make a decision on where would be the best place to start. We can pass down these 50 states and territories and provide you with a very truncated, concise list of, these would be, according to what you're looking for, these would be the top 4 or 5 jurisdictions that we think you should look at. The good news is it's a free service. And essentially, we would just need to have a conversation with our SelectUSA research team based in Washington, DC, and run through the sort of the ambit of the questions, if you will, of what you're looking for. And we'll see if we've got data sets that we can align with those requests. The reason that we want to be able to provide you with some sort of conciseness, obviously, it will either be brand new information for you, or it may provide third-party validation of some of the jurisdictions that you were thinking of yourself. Again, it's free, and what we will do is the second part of that, it's called a locations and resources report. The second part of that is that we will make introductions at the state level to the economic development officers. They're called EDOs. We'll make introductions at the state level to those EDOs that can provide you with a sort of a more micro view. I think, I'm sure for a lot of exporters here that have got experience with the US is a highly fragmented market in terms of a lot of compliance, certainly at a company level, happens at the state level. Sometimes it's a city level, and even sometimes it's at a county level. So to be able to speak to the economic development officers in those particular jurisdictions is critical in the success of what you're trying to do. They can identify potential sites for you. They can advise you on what sort of tax incentives are available at the state level. And the good news for Australian exporters is all of these economic development officers, these EDOs, are hyper-focused on trying to attract investment into their jurisdictions. That is, their governors have said, go out and create jobs for us in our area, please. So they will speak to any company. They're certainly interested in being as aggressive as they can in trying to attract investment into their jurisdictions. Probably, just as a heads up as well, the sort of 3 fundamental questions they'll ask are, when do you think that you might be interested in moving to the US? The second would be, how many people do you think that you'll employ? And the last part, amongst a lot of other questions, would be, what's the size of the capital investment that you're prepared to make into the country? And with those, they're the sort of overarching 3 things that they'll probably ask you. And with those, they will sort of balance it against the other sort of opportunities that they're looking at the time. You can also mention to one state that you're speaking to another state. They really don't mind. They know each other very well, and they're prepared to put their foot forward to say, our particular jurisdiction is the best place for you to come and set up and do business. So if nothing else from this webinar, speaking to the EDOs at the state level is a critically important piece of the puzzle in terms of you expanding into the US market. The third part of our services is we make concierge introductions to other US federal government agencies. And I think, if nothing else from the discussion today, we can see that there's quite a bit of interaction at the federal government level. So we do have contacts at other federal government agencies, so from time to time we can assist in terms of getting someone to respond quicker than you may by putting out a generic email on a federal government agency's website. So that's the third thing. And the last thing that we organise is a SelectUSA Summit. It's a 3-day foreign direct investment conference, and it's held each year in Washington, D.C. Essentially, we have some 6,000 potential foreign investors who assemble in D.C. for this 3-day conference on investing in the US. Leonard, if we can go to the next slide, please. So the next summit occurs May 2 to 6, 2006 in National Harbour, Maryland, which is about 20 minutes out of Washington, D.C. To the summit this year, we took over 50 Australian delegates. There are two parts to the summit. The first is a bunch of plenary sessions, breakout sessions, essentially around everything about investing in the US. You'll hear cabinet secretaries speak. You'll hear experts talk about talent acquisition, taxation, a lot of issues that are germane to investors in the US market. The other part that runs concurrently is all of those EDOs, those economic development officers, will have their own trade show style booths where you can go pretty much around from California to Utah to Colorado and speak to these executives from these EDOs offices. Leonard, have we got some more slides that we can show there?
We do. Let's see if I can advance it.
There we go. So, look, I'm just going to finish with some pretty slides of and pictures of our delegation that has been before. We run a bunch of, apart from, and if you go to the next slide, Leonard, again, please. So, concurrent to the actual event, we'll do some sort of additional tailored meetings. We typically have a briefing at the Australian Embassy where we have some of the Austrade folks that are going to be talking about the US market and some of the intricacies and some of the developments in it. We'll hold receptions. This year we had a reception with a pretty well-known consulting company that put on a networking reception. It's a fabulous way to analyse and evaluate the US market, being amongst a group of like-minded Australian exporters. So also the value of being able to speak to people that are on the same journey. They may not be in the food and beverages market, but some of the issues will be similar to what you would be facing in terms of establishing a market and looking at you know, some of the issues that may affect you and your ability to do it. So I would highly recommend that you have a look at that. If we can go to the next slide, Leonard. And simply, there's my contact details as well. Be happy to field any inquiries from any Australian companies that are looking at entering the US market and how we may be able to assist. And with that, I'll pass it back to Leonard. Many thanks.
All right. Thank you, Duncan. Appreciate everyone hanging in there. We have a few minutes left. There are a number of questions that you guys have posted in the chat. I appreciate that. If the speakers can come back onto camera, I will stop sharing my screen here. Give me 1 second here. Share, stop. Okay, I know we have a number of other speakers that are out there. If you guys can come off camera, let me go ahead and start picking off some of these questions from our audience members today. So Australia has very high quality standards and regulations. Are these recognized by the USA as they are in other regions such as Asia and the Middle East, especially in beverage products manufacturing. Anna, that might be a good one for you. Do you have any insights
I
on
can
that one?
address that to a certain degree. Yeah. So there's absolutely recognition of different varying levels of food safety systems, worldwide. And Australia is one of only 3 countries, along with Canada and New Zealand, that have a system recognition arrangement, SRA, with FDA, where in essence, Australia is recognized as having an equivalent food safety system, which means that when you're actually exporting products, they have a lower likelihood of being inspected. It's just sort of generally understood that, food safety is, going to be equivalent to what we have. And so it's not going to raise as much of a concern and make it a subject to inspection as, an export that's coming from a country that doesn't have an equivalent system. So there are benefits certainly to having that SRA for Australia, Canada, and New Zealand.
Okay, great. I've got another question for you from one of our audience members today that is right up your alley. The question is a dual label, USA and Australia, allowed in packaged food in exporting to the USA?
So unfortunately, we have evidence that FDA can detain products for having a non-US, nutrition facts chart, for example. We've seen several instances where FDA has taken issue because it conflicts with the regulations that govern how FDA says nutritional information should be presented. There are also sometimes other issues in other markets where, for example, if you have E numbers, instead of the names of your food additives, which are permitted in other markets, FDA can deem that information to be intervening or contradictory. So it's really difficult to have a unified label. What we do suggest is if you're not able to produce packaging solely for the US market, to create high quality, kind of an over label, like an over stickering scheme, so that you can cover the non-compliant information with FDA compliant information. And actually my team does that quite frequently for people who are either beginning to ship or if they've been detained with a label that's not compliant, helping them create stickers to cover up that information so that FDA will let the products in.
Excellent. Coming right back at you, Anna. Another question was, I noticed that your prior notice info, what if the material can have food use and non-food use? Or what if maybe a chemical focused on food contact packaging application? When shipping samples, is prior notice required in these cases also?
So samples will require a prior notice. When it comes to the intended use of the product, especially something like a chemical that, could have a food use, it could be used in fertilizer, all sorts of different things. You just need to be really, really clear in the paperwork and what is filed with US Customs, as well as what's filed with FDA regarding what the intended use of that particular product is. So if it has any sort of a food use, it may be prudent to just go ahead and file it as a food ingredient so that you don't run into the issue where FDA holds it up and then you find yourself with a detention where you try and prove exactly who's receiving the goods and what intended use it's going to have when it enters the US market.
Okay. I feel bad for Craig and Vijey. All these questions that have come in have been targeted at Anna. So
well,
there's
kind of
another
hogs most of the time anyway, so there's that too.
So this audience member asked, my product is Fiji sea salt infused with all natural herbs and spices. Is there any special requirements to ship to the US?
Sounds delightful. You absolutely should ship that to the US. Nothing really kind of comes to mind. You'll have to follow all of the regular, the general requirements that we touched upon. Now, some herbs and spices are exempt from nutrition labeling, but if you have salt, you're going to have a sodium content, so you're going to need to have that nutrition facts chart as well. You still have to meet all the food safety requirements, although with a product like that, they're not going to be as onerous as if you're, shipping fresh seafood or something along those lines. So just make sure at least all those baseline requirements are being met.
All right. Thanks, Anna. And we are at the top of the hour. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. I appreciate everyone attending today. Thank you to all our speakers today as well. If you have any questions for any of us and our services, feel free to reach out. Again, we will not be sharing the slides with that we presented today. However, we will be emailing everyone a link to the recording, and we will also be posting this recording on our YouTube channel. So look for us on Registrar Corp on our YouTube channel, and you'll be able to find it there in the next day or so. So thank you again to everyone for attending today. Hopefully you found this very helpful and valuable, and we look forward to doing business with you in the near future. Take care, everyone, and have a great day.